Hi, my name is Justin Saddlemeyer, and this is my critical assignment ethical leader presentation. So, a summary of my chosen career is to go and to be a college football coach. I recently just accepted a job, which I'm moving to in about 2 weeks from California up to Oregon to coach football at Pacific University, which is a D3. And my end goal is still undecided. I don't know if I want to stay D3 and work in that route or if I'd like to go up to D1 or D2 or want to move around. That I have not decided. I know that I do want to keep coaching, but to what level, I do not know. My goal is to help in any way and work my way up. So starting off, I know it's a lot of work, not a lot of pay, working my way up to where I need to be and making sure that I make form good relationships and then obviously coach and serve the kids that I am coaching. So leadership style that I think is best with this is servant leadership. And this is because leaders can be aware of their followers' needs, demonstrate the concern for their welfare, and nurture and accentuate their needs, which is, I think, an often overlooked part. I played D1 football and understood what it was like to be in that situation, moving away from home, and kind of needing someone to look up to for day to day life outside of football and all of the issues that can impact directly the impact on the football field outside of just skill. There's obviously everyone's in college, the stress of that from being away from home, whatever else is going on. So, a servant leader prioritizes the needs, wants, and goals of others over their own, which I think as a good coach, you need to prioritize how can you help these kids get in the best spot for success? Because some people are great coaches, but they can't relate to their players, and that is the most important part for getting the results on the field. And according to Purdue Global, employees today want to feel like they have a job where they can succeed and they want an opportunity to be coached and mentored by someone, which I think a lot of this relates over to college football where kids want to be coached, they want to learn, and they want to know that someone's in their corner for them. They're going to respond a lot better if they know that someone's in their corner, that they're really hoping for their best and they want them to succeed, and that if they don't succeed, they're not going to be punished or harshly reprimanded, but rather taught up into how to get where they want to get. And then three different leadership styles that can also be used. One is pace setting, which, according to Norwich University, is setting performance standards and holding team members responsible for achieving targets, required steps in the pace setting strategy. This is a lot like football, achieve certain things so we can get to this play done, we can achieve this, we can do this to get certain targets before they play in their first game or during the game to achieve certain things like running the ball more, be able to complete these passes that is asked of the kids or athletes. And then also to comprehend and take into account all potential elements that could affect performance. So this goes into kids having bad days, what are coaches doing that's right or wrong. I mean, even if it's from weather, if something happened, like we see a lot of, especially now in the NCAA, of students either getting in criminal trouble, students dying, stuff happening at home, where sometimes some kids won't be a part of it and be able to adapt to certain things like that, or being able to help kids through traumatic experiences that they may be experiencing, like just what happened at Michigan State, and the players rebounding from that to be able to continue with their season in a critical time. The next is autocratic, which, according to Western Governors University, is limited input from the stakeholders, highly structured environment, clearly defined rules and processes. So, not a lot of input from outside sources. The head coach is the main one that makes all the decisions. And it's highly structured. So, you have the head coach, coordinators, and the people under that. It is a clear, defined structure of what is expected, what's going to happen. And the cons are there's high turnover and little input. So we do see in college athletics, kids are constantly gone, and some kids are constantly quitting every year because they can't keep up with whatever's going on. You also have a lot of coaches that either can't cut it, so they're getting fired, or they're moving up and trying to get into a better position at a different school. And the pros are urgent decisions can be made and work is closely monitored for error. So having the head coach when something goes not according to plan, he is the one in charge, so he can instantly make a decision that everyone will follow. And work is closely monitored. So having these coaches, everyone above you, you have a constant monitor of your progress to know if you're doing good, you're doing bad, and how to adjust moving forward. Last one is bureaucratic, which is strict rules and procedures regulating duties and responsibilities, material motivation, and strict rules of hierarchy and authority. This is all according to rulers. And communication and informative flow strictly formalized. So this is very militaristic in its approach and material motivation. So you have wins, or there's often NCAA programs will give kids like a nice dinner if they win a game, which is contrary to what they would normally get in the cafeteria. But there's also strict rules and procedures. So there's the drug testing, GPA mandates, all of the moral and academic goals and rules that they have to follow. And communication and information flow strictly formalized. So through meetings, through coaches, is where all the information comes from one source, and then goes down. And then the company should be built clear and structured system of rewards and promotions. So if kids doing good, they get more playing time. Kids doing bad, they get less playing time, and things like that. Kids do good in college, they go on into the NFL. And then once you get to that point in the NFL, you do good, you get paid more money, get a bigger contract, play for longer. And the cons are it's rigid and costly to pay the top person. The top person holds all the responsibility. So you often see college coaches getting paid a large amount of money. Some like Lincoln Riley at USC is getting paid near $10 million a year to run that football program at USC. The pros are just consistent and accountable, so you know what you're getting because it is the same person giving out the rules. You know what's going to come from them, and they can be held accountable, and all their players will be held accountable under them. If not, they will be replaced and someone will be put in. So there's ethical issues that also come into college coaching as you are dealing with upwards of 100 young adults at any time. And according to Hansen and Savage, education is not simply taken as seriously or regarded as being a vital success on the field in college athletics, as it's grown so prominent and competitive that often academics are overlooked if a player is good enough. And often we see that, especially in basketball, they're one and done. So they have 1 year in college and then they're entering the draft and done. So academics are seen as an afterthought as long as they can play well enough to get into the league. Often seen in other sports that they'll get through with their academics until they can hopefully get drafted and get paid to go make that as their profession. So simply maintaining a player's academic eligibility is thought to be sufficient, which is a 2.0. So as long as kids are pulling straight C's, they think that's okay, and they'll give them study hall to make sure that they can get through that. Strategies to solve this include holding athletes to a certain standard for academics, as well as rewarding players for achieving certain grades. So when I played at Oregon State, if you got over a 3.0, you got a Nike catalog and you were able to pick from what you wanted from that, which helped you also were able to get out of study hall if you had over a 3.0, which saved you 2 hours every night to do something that you wanted to do instead of having to be mandated to study hall. And you can also get awards and certain things for getting all academic for your conference. And scholarships and awards are available to students who achieve a certain mark, and it should be made more universal. We see this as D3s, especially because they can't pay their athletes athletic scholarships, that the higher their grades are in high school, the more money they can get towards college, which helps them pay for college. But it is kind of centralized down to the lower levels. And I think if we saw these up, giving them a monetary amount of money for getting a certain grades, then you would have an incentive more and more to get good grades to also help push forward whatever they're doing outside if they get injured or if making it to the league does not pan out. And the second ethical issue is the health of student athletes. Their physical health and their mental health is especially becoming under a lot of scrutiny lately. And according to Hansen and Savage, some criticize colleges for not treating athletes like employees in an effort to avoid footing the bill for crippling injuries. So you see a lot of them get hurt and they can't play anymore. And a lot of colleges try to get out of blaming in any other way so they don't have to pay for the bills. Me personally, I broke my hip and wasn't allowed to play anymore. And Oregon State did try to kind of get out and blame it on other things why they wouldn't have to pay the bill. Ultimately, they ended up paying for all my surgery and rehab. Not a player graduates or is forced to stop competing due to injury, the institution is no longer responsible for covering his or her medical expenses, which causes many people to doubt the honesty of collegiate sporting policies. So we see this as down the road. For me, for example, I have to get my hip replaced at the age of 35. Oregon State is the one responsible for this. I got hurt playing football, and they are the one responsible as I got hurt in their institution, but they will not be paying for it later down the road. And you give up your body, you give up your brain with the CTE and stuff like that to work for these colleges. And then after you are done, they kind of dump you and don't want anything to do with you anymore. So all Division One universities do pay full medical bills and honor for 3 years post-playing career. So you have 3 years to report and have proof that you got hurt during your time there, and they will pay for it if you take it through the admin front offices. And while you're there, they pay for your doctors, your eye, your dental, everything like that. and any doctor visits you need while you are currently enrolled, they will pay for. The way to prevent this is giving full athletes a full physical and health screening when they leave to ensure that they're healthy. So making sure they leave your doors fully healthy and anything that they need looked at is looked at and given a full screening before to help prevent these issues and give them their what is due for giving up whatever they gave up to play for that university. The recommendations I have for moving forward in this career and how to help is meeting at least twice a year one-on-one with players. Their position coach can be held to check in and speak freely or whatever is needed outside of football. So every college football coach has an office, being able to have a closed door meeting with these players and say what's going on outside of football, how's life, being able to understand that there is a lot that goes outside football, and having these players have a person that they know they can go to whenever something at home goes awry or they're struggling in school, they're struggling with whatever it may be, knowing that they have someone they can talk to help them through instead of thinking that they're all alone, especially when they're far away from home. And at least one sports psychologist therapist should be required to be able to speak with athletes in the time of need outside of their coaches or someone they see every day. Often we see that athletes dealing with something much bigger than a coach is qualified for or should be asked to deal with, like depression, anxiety, things like this, where they should go to a licensed professional, and the sports should have at least one per sport where they are constantly available to these players. And teams have support staffs that are often limited and they're seemingly checking a box more than being helpful. For example, when I was at Oregon State, we had one sports psychologist for all of our 20 plus sports. So there's around 1,000 athletes, and there's one sports psychologist for over 1,000 athletes. Doesn't seem and very applicable, very useful, as it was impossible to get a meeting with him. You had to book months out, and sports psychologists are often for in need, you're struggling with something that you can't get over that's impacting your athletic performance, and it keeps going on and on. Then they're costing scholarships, they're costing playing time, and all these things that could be a simple quick fix if there's someone readily available. And things to think about with this is how can one humanize athletes, not just see them as a source of entertainment or revenue. We see, I mean, these college athletes now are getting paid. They're up on ESPN, ABC, all these big things, these big names getting commercials, but they are still humans and they are usually 18 to 23 years old and still developing and dealing with all the stress that they want to play football. Some of them do want the spotlight and all these things, but all of them don't ask for the constant scrutiny, especially for things they can't control, like injuries or their team losing and stuff like that. And athletes are often held to unrealistic human standards and under a microscope at all times with someone waiting for them to slip up in the slightest way. So anything they do can be put under a microscope, and every part of their life, from what they're getting grades, what they do outside, who they hang out with, everything that they do is constantly judged and evaluated, even though they're just college students and just trying to play football. And then suicide represented 7.3% of all cause mortality in NCAA student athletes, which is 1.35 for 100,000 and 0.37 for 100,000 for males and females. And suicide represents a preventable cause of death, and the development of effective prevention programs is recommended. And this is only including current athletes, which isn't CTE, which is long-term effects of brain damage, which is often seen in football, MMA, soccer, and other sports like that. And only current athletes are studied. We're also seeing a rise in this and uptick, especially of mental health issues in college sports. And again, it's often there's not enough resources to help these students, and there's either no therapist or only one therapist for all of their sports, which is not adequate to serve all these students and the unrealistic high intensity standards that they're going through at all times. And the connection to Christ is these 4 Bible verses, which I think kind of encapsulate what a coach should look for and what we should all look for in day to day life, not just in football coaching, but outside in everyday life. And the first one's John 15:12, which my command is this: love each other as I have loved you, which is the reminder that love someone unconditionally, and even when they're making mistakes, to love them and help them through these hard times, which I think is especially applicable. We talked about the mental health and all the things that these kids go through. The other one's 1 Corinthians 16:14, let all that you do be done in love. So again, constantly approaching coaching with love instead of other external, like only worrying about winning or only worrying other things, but approaching things in love, and that will be the best way to result in what you need. And then 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, love is patient and kind, loves does not envy or boast, is not arrogant or rude, does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful, it does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. We see this and it's often used in marriages, but I think it's very applicable, especially to coaching, to be patient and kind. Don't be envy and boast about if you got a certain player, when you win or when you lose. Do not be arrogant or rude. Constantly show love to everyone and everything, and that will lead you to the best things in life. And to not be irritable, resentful. Don't do wrongdoings. Don't go around cheating. Don't do anyone wrong to get what you want. Because at the end of the day, love will conquer all and be what gets you where you need to be. And above all, the last one, 1 Peter 4:8. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. So, kind of wrapping it all up, is that loving one another is what's going to get us through everything and cover up, hey, there's a bad day and this happened. And hey, coaches are going to yell and kids are going to mess up. But at the end of the day, if there's love there, it's going to cover up all of the wrongdoings, all the issues that can often be seen. Is there's love at the end of the day that helps with everything else.